Okay, so today we are going over a few things that a lot of people struggled with in the week 7 materials and have been asked to try again with. Then we'll move on to talking about the week 8 materials. There were 2 places where we were working last week. One was, let me get this up so y'all can see what I'm looking at. There were 3. There was the quiz on finding sources, and everybody who did that did great. But if you skipped that or forgot it, please go back and do that. I have put in an override 0, so you might not get the automatic score if you did miss it, but you can do it. And when I go in to look for late work, I will see that you've taken it, and I'll change the override. Okay, that's true with all late work. This should be hardwired, so it should work. It does. Okay. Okay, so the other thing was that there were a finding sources cooperative discussion where I asked you to please list the author and title of the 3 articles you found to support your topic. And then there was the understanding sources assignment. Now, about 3 people, and I don't know if they're in this room or not because I don't remember which 3, but there were about 3 people who did one and not the other. Right, and I realize that both places are working with finding the sources and telling me what they are, but I need you to do both. Okay, so if you did the discussion board, but you didn't do the understanding sources assignment, back up and make sure you've done the understanding sources assignment. What I'm talking about today are some of the common problems I saw when I went over both of those, but in particular when I went over the understanding sources assignment. Okay, so I'm going to talk about those things today and make sure that if you've been asked to replace a source, you understand why. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the quality of the sources that we're using, right? And a bunch of people, and this is the reason we do this assignment before we start writing about what we found for research is because we're picky with what sources are considered collegiate level sources, right? So if you've been asked to replace a source, it might be for one of these reasons. So maybe get out a piece of notebook paper or a piece of paper or take notes in your phone. But number 1, we are not using encyclopedias. So if it says the Encyclopedia of such and such or the World Encyclopedia, or if it says Britannia, that's an encyclopedia, or if it says Wikipedia, right? So if we found in Britannica articles or World Encyclopedia articles or Encyclopedia of blank articles, we're not using those. Encyclopedias are not the scholarly sources that we're looking for here, okay? So some students have been asked to remove and replace encyclopedia articles. Okay. The second thing that I saw a lot of were topic overviews. And the topic overviews are from things like ProQuest, or it's opposing viewpoints, and there's no author and there's no article title other than opposing viewpoints. Or it's Confederate monuments, pros and cons, and the periodical is listed as opposing viewpoints. Those are topic overviews by the database that's collecting the articles, and they're not actual articles. So a lot of people have been asked to remove and replace the topic overviews. Okay, and I've told you which ones they are. So I've gone into your understanding sources and said, please replace source number 1, that's a topic overview. Okay, so if you're not 100% sure of that, absolutely come to a help session and ask a question or post again with some new articles. But we are replacing anything that is a topic overview. So those are the ProQuest and opposing viewpoints topic overviews. Those are actually not articles, so we want to replace those. The other thing I saw, and I'm not sure I saw any in this section, but I definitely saw them in my other two sections of English 101, so I'm going to bear mentioning it in case you replace one problem with another problem. There's some articles out there floating around from a journal called Junior Scholastic. Okay, and it looks tempting. The title is very informative. The title looks like it's very much on track. But when you look at Junior Scholastic online, what you see is that it's a social studies service for blended learning in grades 6 through 8. Is that a collegiate level source? No, it's not. And the tip off there is that the periodical is called Junior Scholastic. Yes, Scholastic are the book order people from grade school and junior high, right? That you used to get your book orders for. And while I love them for my younger students, for the students that I tutor who are junior high age, we are past that now. So we want to look for articles that were written for grown-ups because we are all grown-ups. So be aware that that's out there and don't choose that one. Again, I don't know if anybody in this class had chosen that one or not. Okay, a couple of other things, topic overviews, encyclopedias we've gotten. All right, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is things that are a little bit off topic, okay? Now, let me first say that I know for sure that police brutality and the removal of Confederate monuments are issues that are tied together, right? I understand that the issue of reparations and the removal of Confederate monuments are issues that are tied together. But we are only talking about the little issue of Confederate monuments and whether they should stay or go. So I don't want us to choose things that are a little further off topic, okay? So we want to make sure that we are sticking really close. So if something says, like I've noticed a couple of people choosing things like police power in the aftermath of Black Lives Matter. And while that sounds like an article I definitely want to read and learn from, I'm not convinced it's about the Confederate monuments. Does that make sense? Now, if it is, and I'm incorrect, I've misjudged it by the title, then the summary of it should tell me what it says about the monuments, right? And a couple of people did this successfully. Osagi, I know you're arguing to keep the monuments, and you found some good. And I don't know whether the ones you found was the one about where Trump talks about keeping the monuments or not. But that's one that students, it looked like in the title like it had nothing to do with it, but the students had read the article and he talks about keeping the monuments and why he thinks that's important. So that one works, and it was their summary that convinced me it would work. Does that make sense? But you have to let me know in the summary what the article says about the monuments and their removal, not any of the connected issues. And I know there are a million issues connected to it, right? And that's why it's an interesting topic. But we are just focusing in on this narrow issue of the monuments being removed. So make sure that you're keeping things. Now, the other thing that I noticed is that a bunch of people had things that were just 5 paragraphs, and the paragraphs are only like 3 to 5 sentences each. Remember, we have a word count minimum for the articles that we're using, and that's a 750 word minimum. So if you look at an article and it's got a little bit of good information in it, but it's short, it's underneath that 750 word threshold, we're not picking that, right? We're looking for the articles that have a longer, more involved conversation about the topic, right? Remember, my threshold was that it shouldn't be shorter than the essay I'm asking you to write, right? And 750 is our minimum for essays in English 101, okay? So kind of keep that in mind. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to take us to the library website here, and hopefully my hotspot is enough to deal with that. And I want to take a look at a couple of things because I think we're not seeing or we're confused about what I mean when I say the publication title. Okay, so I'm going to grab Academic One file here and I'm going to look for a couple where the students were misidentifying the publication title. And then we're going to talk about it. All right, so let's see. I'm going to go to the Daniel Malik. All right. No, that's not it. Let's see. Bear with me. Maybe it was in opposing viewpoints. Let's get back to the databases. Let's try O. I am not at O yet. All right, here we go. Opposing viewpoints. There we go. We are looking at this. It says removing Confederate monuments and other reminders of slavery hides valuable history. And if we're looking just at this, it would tell us that the periodical title is the Gale Opposing Viewpoints online collection. But that's not right. So let's open it and take another look. The author is Daniel Malik, and it says that it comes from here, but I want you to look down at the bottom. Okay, and sometimes to get the information that we need about it, we do have to look down at the bottom. And what does this say? Can anybody see it well enough to read it? Anybody in the room see it well enough to read it? Let me make it a little bigger. What does that say there? I know there's glare. Can you read it? There we go. Okay, now the other thing that you can do if you don't want to use it through this weird source is that you can go up here and do attacking the past and see if you can find and Malik. Too many. And no results. So sometimes you can find it. It doesn't matter if you can't. I will go back to Malik and Confederate monuments so that we can get, that's in the viewpoints. And it is collected there. It's a good viewpoint essay. I really like this article a lot, especially for this. But then don't forget that if you're looking for where it came from, that you want to, and if it just says the name of the database, which is the Gale Opposing Viewpoints, look to the bottom and see if you can find it. So this one came from American Thinker, and you can even use the title, Attacking the Past, the Removal of Confederate Monuments. It's still by Daniel Malik, okay? Does that make sense? It's it's a weird one. And I want to take a look at another one. Let's take another look at, let's see, one that was really common. And for this, I'm actually going to not share it with everybody, and I'm going to pause the recording. All right, so Tanaya is using this article by Symposium, and she said that the periodical or the publication title that I asked for was World News Communication. But let's take a look when we follow that link and see what's really going on here. Okay, so I'm just going to follow that link. And she did a great job giving me links that work so I can absolutely help her. So let's take a look at it together. Okay, And so she was saying, what's the name of the publication? Hold on. Yes, I know. Hold on one second. I've got a student who's trying to get in on Zoom. We have an internet outage. I will post a video later. All right. Okay, so she was looking where it said publisher, World News Communications, and she was grabbing that as the name of the publication, which makes a lot of sense because publication and publisher are such close words to each other that I know for sure she was looking at those two words and matching them up, right, and saying that's the right one. So smart woman, good reader, but inexperienced with looking at these things. So when we're looking for the periodical title or the title of the publication, that means those are two interchangeable words. So the publication is the magazine or journal that published it. So it's going to be this one right here, okay? So I'm going to make that a little bigger so that we can see it. So when you are looking for the periodical title, you're looking for the from, okay? So you're looking right there. And if it tells you that it's from a database, it could be one of two things. If this from thing matches the database that you're in, check down at the bottom and see if it's the same thing here. So Insight on the News is also in the space where the periodical goes there, okay? It's in Gale Academic One file. That's the database name, okay? If it matches the database that you're in, look down here for that originally published as, and if you don't find the originally published as, it's probably a topic overview. And it will probably say in the source citation that it's a topic overview. And those are the ones we want to get rid of because we're not doing topic overviews. We want to look for real articles, okay? Okay, so does that make sense to everybody? Good. Okay. So here's what we're going to look for in the last week's assignment. If you earned a 7 or higher, that means that you may have in the week 7 understanding sources assignment, if you earned a 7 or higher, that means there may be an issue to fix. But you're on the right track and I trust you to fix it. So I might have given you an 8 out of 10, even if I'm asking you to replace one of your sources, okay? Or you got a 9 out of 10, even though you had gotten the name of the periodical wrong. Those are not major issues. You've found good sources. We're just tweaking things for the works cited list later, right? Or you found 2 really good sources, so I trust you to use the database and find a third to replace one that wasn't so awesome, right? But I trust you. We got there. Just move on and be good, right? Take the feedback, replace the one that wasn't the strongest, but you don't need to resubmit in the week 7 assignment space. If, however, you received lower than a 7 in the assignment, I'm worried that you don't have strong sources or you're not understanding the sources that you have, or I didn't get links and I can't check them, right? So those, if you got a lower than a 7, that's designed for you to fix it and upload it again in the week 7 assignment space and have another shot at it, so that you can get a good grade and be secure in the sources that you're using before we write about them next week, okay? So hustle and take that feedback and resubmit, and then early next week or later this week, even if you get it in by Thursday or Friday, I'll take another look at it and see if you're on track now and the issues have been fixed and you're good to go, okay? 7 or higher, it's not gonna matter to your grade very much, and I trust you to move on. Don't resubmit, just fix the issue and move on. But lower than a 7, this is one of those assignments where I'm on purpose having students fail here instead of turning in an essay where I have to fail the whole essay because it's not using the right kind of sources, right? So it's designed to protect your grade, where you can have a small problem here and fix it before we move on to a bigger problem. Does that make sense? Glorious. Okay. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is this week 8 assignment. We went over this in a lot of depth on Monday, and I want to point out a few things. If you were asked to fix things in week 7, I do have a review there for you to watch. So I'll have the video of what we're talking about right now as well. There's also a live class covering the week 8 assignments. That's what we did on Monday. And if you missed Monday, or if you have already forgotten Monday because you're in college and you're very busy, you can go back and rewatch that class. In this class, we build the paragraph from the thing I'm asking you to build it from. So I'm asking you to go to the week 6 discussion board and use the 3 quotes that you had there and the explanations for why you chose them, and now turn those into a source paragraph, okay? And we do that together in that Monday class. So if you missed Monday's class, or if you've forgotten Monday's class, that video is there for backup. This handout should be in front of you while you're working on this assignment. It is the step-by-step for how to do this assignment. It's the handout called Sample Source Paragraph. And the beginning of it has the steps of a source paragraph listed. And then the second page of it has a sample that's color-coded by the different jobs of a source paragraph for everybody to walk through. And I'm going to walk through it one more time because it's so important, all right? There is a video that walks through how to use sources as well, just specifically that. So you've got by the end of today, you're going to have 3 videos to watch that'll cover this material, okay? I think the best one is probably that live class because I think that's the most comprehensive. And I actually go to one of the week 6 discussion boards from one of my classes and take the quotes and stuff that she used and put them in the paragraph and do exactly what I'm asking you to do. So in that video from Monday, I do exactly what I'm asking you to do, and it's recorded. Okay, so make sure you engage with that. All right, please use the Using Quotes handout and the Sample Source Paragraph handout as a model. Write a source paragraph using 3 short quotes from either why I changed my mind about Confederate monuments or why we should keep the Confederate monuments. Those are the sources I gave you in week 6. We are not yet writing about your sources from the databases because I haven't approved them all yet. Some students are still working to find those, so we're not writing about them yet, right? Does that make sense? So next week, once they've all been approved, you'll be expected to write about them, but right now you're still checking them and sometimes replacing them, so we're not writing about them yet. That's why we're doing our first source paragraph about something I know about, so and that you already have, so you don't have to worry about whether it's a good source or not, okay? All right. So you did a lot of the legwork for this. I'm actually going to correct this 1 second. It's in the week 6. In the week 6 discussion board. Okay, it's not in last week's. Last week was week 7. So it was in the week 6 discussion board where we chose 3 quotes from one of those 2 articles from week 6. And we put them in quotation marks and then said why we liked them, right? And that's what we're building on, okay? You should be copying and pasting from the work you did in week 6. What if you didn't do the work in week 6? Yes, go back and do it. Should you do it first or second? First, because it's building the paragraph that we're working on this week. Okay, all right. So can anybody tell me what the first job is in a paragraph that uses a source? Yes, God love you. It's a topic sentence. Because that's the first job in any kind of paragraph, really. So let's get this open. It's a topic sentence. Now, tell me what the 3 jobs of a topic sentence are. This is a little review from week 4. What are the 3 jobs of a topic sentence? To tell exactly what the paragraph will be about. That's job number 1. Absolutely. There are 2 other jobs. What are they? It's not on this handout. It's from week 4. We don't remember. We got to remember these. To connect, use keywords to connect to the prompt or the thesis, right? So something about Confederate monuments, keeping or removing, right? Should be in that topic sentence. And the 3rd job, anybody remember? What kind of phrase does it need to have in it somewhere? Yes. All right. The brains are working. All right. A transitional phrase. That's right. To let your reader know if this is the first example, the 3rd example, the last example, another example, right? We're working on having those transitions in there. Good. So we've got to do that kind of very careful sentence first. Could you follow it up with another sentence of your own thinking before you get to your source? Or 2 sentences of your own thinking before you get to the source? Yes, you sure can. Okay. Then we have step 2. Step 2 is a source introduction. On Monday, I told you I want your source introductions to be no fewer than 3 sentences. What were those sentences? The title, the author, or the periodical title if you don't have an author, because sometimes there are things from CNN Wire that don't have an author. That's understandable. But you should have either the author or the periodical title next. If you have an author, definitely author before periodical title. Okay. And then the 3rd one was what? It could be 3 or 3 and 4 and 5, but at least 1 sentence for this. You've given me one for title. You've given me one for author, periodical title if you don't have an author. The 3rd one is what? Yes, that's right. At least 1 sentence summarizing the article in your own words. What's it about? This is an article about, and then in your own words. And remember, summary is what you can say about the article without looking at it. You read it, you understood it, and now you can say something about it without looking. And that's what summary is. So I want those 3 things. So this just talks generally about a source introduction in this handout. But in the sample below, there's a model of exactly what I'm looking for. So we have a sentence that talks about the author, a sentence that tells me what the title is, and a sentence or 2 telling me what that piece is about in general. Okay? All right. What is the 3rd job of a source paragraph? Right, to take those quotes and put a quote integration phrase in front of it that says the author argues, comma, quote, Gallagher says, comma, quote, Malik says, comma, quote, right? And we did a little bank of them on Monday. So again, if you missed class on Monday, watch that video and look for the little bank of introductory phrases or quote integration phrases to use leading into your quotes. Good. What's step 4? You've integrated your quote, and now you give a quote, and then what happens after the quote has been integrated? Right, we put a citation. The citation goes at the end of the sentence in which your quote appears. So if you have a very short quote and your sentence continues after it, the citation goes at the end of the sentence, not the end of the quote, okay? If the end of the quote is also the end of the sentence, then it just goes at the end of the quote. But if your sentence continues after the quote, like President Obama said, I like Dr. Swanberg and he knows me very well, right? And so this part's in quotes and the "and he knows me very well" comes in after that. The citation is at the end of my sentence. Yeah? It goes just like you see it here on the screen. That's a really good question. If warming is the end of the author's sentence and they have a period there, we take the period out and then we add a citation to our sentence and then we put the end punctuation at the end of our sentence. Okay, so there's not two periods there, one to end the quote and then another one after the citation. There's just a period at the end of the citation, just right here. Okay, so it's not going to go here, it's going to go over here. Okay, all right. There will be time to fix that later. That is an editing issue. So right now we're trying to get the big stuff. I want your citations to look like this one because you are not using the original pagination. So yours will look like this. They will say PAR period and then the number of the paragraph it came from. Every semester have a student say, how do I know which paragraph number it is? How do you know which paragraph number it is? You count them. That's right. I always have a hard time trying to say that in a way that doesn't sound sarcastic. I don't mean to be sarcastic. It's just a very simple answer. You count those paragraphs. Nobody's counted them for you in most cases, so you have to count them yourself. That's okay. Students want to get it right, and sometimes I think their anxiety tells them it's a more complicated answer than it is. All right, so you just count them. If you're not 100% sure whether something's a paragraph or not, just say it is. If it seems very short and you know you'd get scolded for writing a paragraph that short, but it's all by itself and there's a space above it and a space below it, it's still a paragraph. Go ahead and count it. It's just probably not what I would call a paragraph, but journalism is different than college writing. Okay, if you take a journalism class, you're going to unlearn all these rules about paragraph development. All right, and then after our citation, we offer our reader a few sentences of analysis. And that analysis is not, please, telling me what the quote means. I'm a very, very good reader. I understood your quote the first time. Chances are very, very good. What I need to know is what you see in it that's important. So make sure that you tell your reader what you want me to see in that quote. What's important about it? Why did you pick it? Why do you think it's convincing for your side of this debate? Okay. And for the most part, I think the things that you wrote in discussion board are pretty good. So you can keep those, right? All right. There's a sample here that we went over in a lot of detail on Monday. I am not going to make you go back over the whole thing again today because we went over it in a ton of detail on Monday. So what I'm going to do now, we've gone over this. I want to remind you that this handout is the sample source paragraph handout, and that I go over it in a lot of detail in this live class. And then I build the assignment I'm asking you to build just like I were a student building it. Okay, so that live class is really essential. If you need a little more patience in going over source use in the handout, there's also a video for that. If you've been asked to change your week 7 assignment, there is a video for that, plus the video that I'm recording right now. All right, I'm gonna pause the recording.